get ready to take control of your healthcare. Here's your host, Ray Kober.
And we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Broken Healthcare. My name is Ray Kober, and I am thrilled to have in studio Anthony Masotto from Drexi. Did I get your name right, Anthony?
You did, Ray.
Indeed, indeed. Excellent. And Anthony is a former New Yorker. He lived here for a minute. He's got family here. So there's that piece of it. But then we lost him to the West Coast, San Diego for a little while. Now he's in Arizona. It's all over the place. But I ran into him at a panel at one of our events. I think
National Alliance, I believe. I was on that panel.
Yes.
High cost drugs.
Yes, exactly. And very insightful stuff. So tell us a little bit about kind of how you got to the panel. Did they pick you out of a hat? Did they find you somewhere? Like, were you under a rock? Where were you, Anthony?
No, I've been involved with those guys for, multiple years now. I did the PBM playbook for them the year before. I was part of that.
And what we know is that most Americans have less than $1,000 saved for a rainy day.
Mm-hmm.
And we're saddling them with these high deductible plans that really now it's approaching $2,000, the average deductible, more or less. The last time I checked, it was $1,600. I'm quite confident it's north of that now. How do you manage this? And what you just said is very insightful, because now we have these whole other classes of drugs that are being produced by the pharmaceutical manufacturers. And let's say for the record, it's not all bad. Like some of the stuff is the difference between life and death.
1,000%.
But there's a cost for it.
That's right. So, you look at, you made a point of, the deductibles continue to raise, right? And most Americans are making, say, $55,000 a year. They're on a high deductible health plan. That's before taxes and everything else. And then you tack on a $2,000 deductible or a $10,000 max out of pocket. And so I think one of the biggest pushbacks is, we don't want to disrupt our members, right? We don't want to put them in a spot where, well, what's more disruptive? Them going bankrupt and not affording their drug, their costs, right, in healthcare, or actually help them navigate them. They might have to jump through a couple of different hoops, but in doing that, right, they get the care that they need. A lot of employers can offer that care for no cost, right? You're enriching benefits, and at the same time, the plan is saving money. Right?
Here's where my problem is. In healthcare, the way that they have done that is at issue. And now we're at a point where I think the shareholders are kind of used to this exponential growth.
Yes.
And now how are you the CEO that says we're at a point now where growth is going to slow down a lot? You're never going to hear that on a quarterly, earnings.
No,
earnings
no, you can't. The train's already left the station, right? I mean, there's just, and to your point, right? They've been the shareholders, everybody is just like, okay, we need our 20%, we need our 15% growth. We need this, right?
Yep.
This is the expectation that they've set.
Yeah.
And they've created this system, right? Of this really messed up system.
But we all kind of find a way to cope. And for some people, they're taking a happy pill. For me, it's a glass of tequila, and one leads to another, and it's too many glasses of tequila, right? And so now I'm at a point where, it's enough. And I hope the next time we see one another that I turn 60 pounds of fat into 20 pounds of muscle.
I would love to see that, right? Absolutely.
I'm working on it, baby. But the truth is, that is, I think, the struggle. And I don't think I'm a bad guy.
No.
I don't think anybody that's heavy or overweight is
No.
They're not bad people. But I think as society goes, we're so full of shit about, they're a little heavy. They need to lose a few pounds. Call it what it is. And I'm not saying it's not right to make anyone feel bad. You don't want to talk down on it, but you also want to acknowledge there's a problem. Like that is not a healthy shell that you're in, and you could do something about it. And I think, step one is just kind of acknowledging that. And, let's just stop the horse shit of pussyfooting around, because I'm not going to get where I told you I'd like to go by sitting in my podcast studio on my ass 8 hours a day. I need to set a timer and, take a brisk walk. I need to get my heart rate pumping. I need to lift. I need to do what I need to do. And I know what I need to do. And I need to cut the alcohol out. And I need to really eat whole, natural, real foods and get away from stuff that, as an Italian, bread, and pasta, and pizza. I'd like to talk about that. But getting back to international for a second. So one of my curiosities is I've heard in our circle, some people say, well, it's illegal to source drugs internationally. And yet self-funded plans do it all day long. Is there a legality? Is there a concern about getting drugs from, like, I know that the main, countries are Canada, Australia, New Zealand, people that are English speaking, so you could read the labels, which makes a lot of sense. Yep. Is there some legality or red tape involved?
I think if you, we have, many legal opinions, right? And, based on the way that the law is written, self-importation up to 90 days is completely allowed, right? Both, even the Biden and the former Trump administration, both through HHS said, hey, look, we're not going to do anything about trying grandma getting her drug,
right?
For cheaper so she can take the medications.
Well, that makes sense.
Now there is, language around only importing FDA approved medications, right? So there's like RIMS products, very highly products that have oversight that you cannot import, right? So understanding that, and there were some bad actors in the space that were importing everything and not following, the law, right? So that maybe left a bad taste to some people. But also, right, the big PBMs are trying to lobby like the FDA and all these entities to say, stop this, right? Don't allow them to, because guess what, right? Now there's another option that we can access drugs, right? And then on top of that, last year, a year ago, the FDA gave approval to the state of Florida to import drugs from Canada for the state employees, right? And there are multiple states from Colorado to New Hampshire, all over the country that have passed legislation,
right,
to allow for importing drugs into the U.S.
If it's good enough for them, it's got to be good enough for your average employer.
And I'll make this final point, right? At the end of the day, people talk about this all the time. I say, cannabis at the federal level is illegal.
Yep.
At the state level, all of a sudden they're allowed, but ultimately it's still illegal at the federal level, right? Yeah. So again, there's a lot of talking outside of both, sides of their mouth where, it's like, oh, well, if we can't profit on it, then it's illegal.
Right.
So we'll pick on Lilly because the two major manufacturers of insulin are Lilly, Eli Lilly, and Novo Nordisk, right? Novo makes Novolog, and Lilly makes Humalog. All right. So Humalog Quickie Pens, right, is to manage your diabetes, and the Quickie Pen costs like around $100 per pen.
Okay.
Right. You need probably 5 to 10 pens a month to manage your diabetes. So let's say $10,000 on the exact same production line that Humalog Quickie Pens are made. Insulin Lispro Quickie Pen is made. It is the bioidentical of that drug. It just has a different label. It's like walking into Costco and buying Kirkland vodka. We all know it's made by Grey Goose. It's the same thing, but I pay $20 instead of $60.
Wow.
You can buy that exact same Insulin Lispro Quickie Pen for $9. So now you can manage the same diabetic for $100 that you're managing for $1,000.
Wow.
So by the time everybody takes their cut, right, their pound of flesh, essentially, right, you're left with what you got. Maybe 30% out of a pot of, say, 50, right? Because, everyone's taking their little bit. So the closer you can get up, typically you can gain maybe another 5 points, right? So our average rebate return is somewhere between 30 and 35% on because it's all, and then if it's a really big group, right, that, they really want, you can try to get upwards in the 40% or so.
Yeah.
But again, it all depends on what your drug mix is. What drugs are they taking? Are they on highly rebatable drugs?
Well, hey, thank you so much for being a guest on our show. Knowledge is power. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge with our audience. With what's going on in healthcare today, you have to kind of pull back the curtain. If you suspect that something's going on, odds are it's
going on.
It's probably
follow your gut. Like if you think something's off, there's something on.
For sure. So until next time, folks, thank you for tuning in. Peace and love always. Take care.
All right, that's a wrap. Hit like, follow, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.